So McDonald's, I was working on the weekends. That was my first job. Working over there was like, it was fun. I liked it. I started off in the back and then I escalated up. Like, I was opening up in the mornings, 4:30 in the morning.
That's grind and grit right there, though.
I was the only person in the back, flipping them. Like, it used to be like a thrill. And then eating the food was good too then. And wound up working down at the airport. And that's when I figured out what my purpose, what I was going to put my full 100% into. And it was the youth. Because I didn't want nobody to go through what I went through.
The harder you grind, the bigger you dream.
The harder you grind,
The bigger you dream.
Hey,
The harder you grind,
the bigger you dream.
Whoa, whoa.
The harder you grind,
The bigger you dream.
The harder
you grind, the bigger you dream.
Let's get it, let's go. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. I said the harder you grind, the bigger you dream. I said you're up and I'm up. You're now tuned in to the Grind Hard Dream Big Show. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. I got a special guest in the building. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
How you doing, man? Mr. Johnson from Johnson Family Foundation, the CEO of the foundation.
How you feeling today, bro?
Feeling grateful, man. Blessed.
So for those people that don't know, like your childhood, where you were born, where you were raised.
Well, for me, it's Baltimore, Maryland, to be exact, Northeast Baltimore. My mom was the only child of my mom. My dad lived in Delaware. He had about 9 kids, but he lived in a whole nother state. But I did have a dad there. He was in my life since I was about 1 year old. Went to daycare, then started school, Leaf Walk Elementary. Leaf Walk, my elementary days, I used to always get in trouble. My mom used to come to school, jack me up. My dad, I turned into my dad. I called him dad on my own, even though he wasn't my real father. At the same time, he used to tighten me up too when I used to get in trouble. I had a really bad, I was a kid in the school, got all conduct interfered with learning. That's like, trouble. But I got through it. Was a C kid, not A's and B's. Was a C kid. Got through it. Middle school, that's the teenage years. That's when you start finding yourself and hanging with other people. My neighborhood was a neighborhood where we was a lot. It was like 40 of us. Up there was like 40 of us, but we all stuck together. So it was like different ages, but we all stuck together. Played football, tackle, rode bikes. Played basketball at the recreation center across the street from my house. In the midst of playing basketball, that's where all rivalry days started. You had to have heart to play basketball around there. I was a small kid, small stature. Of course, I'm a little big now, but I was a small stature kid, but had a big heart. I didn't have a hard upbringing at that stage. It was just fun. It was a school around our neighborhood when I was leaving out of 8th grade, and it was Northern High School. Northern High School was one of the worst schools in the area. My mother said, "You're not going there." I was like, why? I want to go with my friends. She was like, no, you need to go to a school where you can learn something, get a trade and stuff like that. And I was like, all right. I didn't have the grades to get into Dunbar. Dunbar was a basketball school. Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School, East Baltimore. That was a basketball school. But it also had dental hygienists, and then they had nurses programs. So I chose the dental. My mom is a Delta Sigma Theta. Just so happened the principal was a Delta Sigma Theta. So that, a little couple codes. Hey,
Yeah.
Please let my baby in. That's my baby. I'm all, still a baby to this day. She pulled a couple strings. I had to go through a summer bridge program. They let me in, and I got in. I got in that school. In the midst of getting in that school, my freshman year, of course, I tried to play basketball, but my confidence didn't let me play. Like, it was like they was the nicest in the area. So I didn't even try out.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even try out. I played my little rec ball, and I didn't try out. In the midst of not trying out, I still met a lot of friends, but, it was a different type of friends. People played basketball. People played football, and people played. They was doing band and all types of stuff down there. The culture was very different than what I was coming from. But I wound up struggling that ninth grade year. Had to go to summer school because the curriculum was a little different. But I went to summer school that ninth grade year. I was about 14 and some change. My dad and my grandpa started taking me fishing. That was like something that I used to like to do. That was a time when me, my dad, and my grandpa, used to just go down there early in the mornings and start fishing down there not too close from Cherry Hill, over Hanover Street Bridge. We used to go fishing. And my dad and my grandpa used to give me certain lessons and things that you just take with you. I actually learned how to drive during that time too, when I didn't have a permit and stuff like that. But they would let me drive on a straight line, like a straight street. But it was like a hard to explain. It was behind some warehouses, but it was a straight, probably about 2 miles. You just drive straight. So I started off with that, learned that, and then wound up learning how to drive back there. I got into my 10th grade year, and I'm not a freshman no more. They used to call us fresh meat. So I'm not a freshman no more, but I now I got my confidence up. Yeah. I'm like, all right, cool.
Bet.
I know I'm doing my thing. I know everybody. And then I wanted a girlfriend. That was like the years we say, hey, you don't have a girl. I need a girlfriend. So I said, I'm gonna go get me a fresh meat. So I met a young lady down there. Her name was Wendy, and she was a freshman. Nice looking girl, long hair, pretty good upbringing, had both parents. And then I started dating her. We was dating her. We was dating for a while. We stayed together for at least 2 years, my 10th and 11th grade year. In the midst of going into my 11th grade year, I wound up doing something I wasn't supposed to do, which was cheating on her. In the midst of cheating on her, I got another girl pregnant my junior year. So I didn't know how to tell Wendy, so I didn't. Just even trying to face her and let her know that was going on was like a tough time. I didn't know how to do it. My grades, knowing that I was having a kid, coming, my grades wind up slipping even more because I'm stressing. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And then Dunbar wound up putting me out. I had to go to alternative school, which was Harbor City back then. And in the midst of that was like alternative school over Lexington Terrace. That's like the heart of West Baltimore. It wasn't a lot east. You got the projects over here, Murphy Home, all the different hoods was over there from West Baltimore. And I was just a kid from up Northeast Baltimore. I did have my license at the time, drove to school, stuff like that. That made me popular going to the school because it was like, this kid from over east just driving. And I was a handsome guy. So that drew a lot of attention. More girls, but in the back of my mind, I still had a son on the way. So when my son was coming, it was kind of like nervous a little bit. But at the same time, my mom and my kid's mom kind of helped out. I'm going to say stepped in, like big time. They made me grow up a little quick. So remind you, I was driving. I wasn't playing basketball at the time. And then I was working at McDonald's. So McDonald's, I was working on the weekends. That was my first job. Working over there was like, it was fun. I liked it. I started off in the back and then I escalated up. Like, I was opening up in the mornings, 4:30 in the morning.
That's grind and grit right there, though.
I was the only person in the back, flipping them. Like, it used to be like a thrill. And then eating the food was good too then. But then came Brandon Jr. His name is Brandon Johnson Jr. too. Then he came. In the midst of him coming, like the reality there, I had to go to school. At the school, I had to pick him up from his grandma because she worked day. What's that? What's the middle shift? Day shift? No, that's evening. She worked on the evening. So when I picked him up from school, when I got out of school, go get him, keep him with me. Around I got school. He'd go with me at a certain time around 9 or 10 o'clock. When he lay down, my mom would say, hey, I'll help you out with him. He could lay with me. stuff like that. If I wanted to go out for a little while, okay, nothing too long. My mother ain't let me stay out past 11, but she helped me out. But in the morning when I get up, get him ready, and I had to take him back to his grandmother's, right? Because she had him on day shift when I went to school. That part right there really, turned the switch on. It was like, hey, I'm 17 with a kid, and every day this is my routine.
Yeah, you're an adult now.
Yeah,
you're basically an adult now. Like
I'm
all of
telling
that
you,
is, yeah, you're an adult now.
and it was like in the back of my mind, it was like, all right, I want my son to have everything that I didn't have.
Right.
Now, granted, I had a lot of stuff, but sometimes in that day era, I didn't have all the Jordans. I might have had some Jordans, but I didn't have all of them.
Yeah.
I didn't have all the super design. I mean, I had first downs in middle school, lugs and, certain stuff like that, a couple jerseys, but I didn't have a couple polo shirts.
Yeah.
Bugle Boy was back then, but, I didn't have what I think that I was supposed to have. Now, when I get older, I had enough.
Yeah.
I didn't think I had enough. In the midst of, going back to school with him, I said, this ain't cutting it. So I decided to start hustling. Yep, I started to hustle. I jumped out there and started to hustle, and it was working. My mom, I hid it from my mom. She didn't know it at all. I got to the 12th grade down at alternative school, was still working, still doing that, and still hustling too. In the midst of doing all that, I never got any charges or something like that. But my mom was telling me, like, Brandon, all I need you to do is to graduate. It will be, it will break my heart if you did not graduate from high school. Back then, graduating from high school was something. It was really like a milestone to graduate from high school. So it was like, yeah, I can't let my mother down. Like, So I wound up, I was supposed to graduate in 02. I graduated in 03. I still got it done. So in the midst of graduating, it was like, oh yeah, I graduated, I did what you're supposed to do. And then it was on and popping, like, still doing a little bit of street stuff, still dating a lot of women, stuff like that.
For sure. I
And
see you. Yeah, you doing what you had to.
Yeah.
Basically, at that time, you just like surviving. It's a lot, though. I ain't gonna lie, bro. Like, that's a lot. I ain't gonna lie. You was dealing with adversity over here, so much to endure, and you go back and it's like, okay, about your junior year in high school, it's like, man, I'm an adult, and I got to thug it out my last 2 years just to sit there and go through that and everything like that. And it's like, I guess you didn't know about it until you had to like really go through it. But I want to salute you for going through it, because it seems like all of that, really built that character early, even though you were seeing like, we fall, we get back up, we fall, we get back up. You just kept getting back up and continuing to, try and strive. Because I think that sometimes when, we're in survival and it's like, this is all we know. This is all we seen. This is my environment. But you had to make the best of whatever was around you to just see just fit. You know what I mean? Whatever happened. So as you pivot, I guess early, where it's like adulthood hit, now that, your child is in the world, your first, your son, what was the mindset after that? Like
After having him?
Yeah, after having him.
Me and him, we grew up together. Being as though my father was, lived in another state, he would, come around. Sometimes I go over the summers with him and stuff like that. But I knew that how my mother was, raised me, that some things wasn't just right. So I was like, you know what, I gotta be the best father out there possible. Like any way, I had to be better than everybody. My dad, which was in the household with me, instilled a lot of things in me. So I knew how to be a dad because he taught me a lot. My stepdad really taught me everything. But growing up with Brandon was like a trial and error thing. Me and him had a great bond. In the midst of him growing up around about 1, remember Wendy?
Yeah.
He was almost 1 year old. I never told her, somebody told her. And that broke her heart, So that was like, all right, well, she know now, but I still got to be this dad. So, growing up with him, it was like, you everywhere I went, he was with me. Like, everywhere I go. If I went to the recreation center, I'm still hooping, he there. Wherever we went, he was just there. And dealing with that adversity, it was just like, I'm gonna get through it. His mom was not really, she was really not really to be a mother. So she really was like, she wasn't really in the picture. So it was just me, his grandmother, and his grandmother. So it was just like us. It was just us thing. And, that really just shaped me into a whole different person.
For sure. Because I feel like once you have to push that button, it's like, I got to push that button. I got to go. And I got to do what's best for, of course, me and mine and at that particular point. So as you kind of like pivot and transition into, like finding your purpose and like digging into those things, like what was that like?
So the crazy part about it, I knew my purpose at that time was just being a dad. So far as the pivot part, it was like eat, sleep, breathe, dad. That was just it. I kept a job. I told you the other things I was in the midst at that time I was doing. As I turned at 19, I caught my first charge. 19 years old. After I graduated, I was probably out of school for probably like 4 or 5 months. I was full-fledged in the streets and got my first charge. And that was a gun charge. I wound up getting a gun charge and then had to get a lawyer. I wasn't making a lot of money then, but I was making a couple dollars. But at the same time, when I first got my first charge, I didn't have bail money. And not having bail money, it was like, who do you call? I called my mom. The bail was $50,000. She had to put the house up. It was $100,000. I'm sorry, correction. It was $100,000. She had to put the house up for the deed for the house, and she wound up getting me out. In the midst of doing that, it was like I learned that I was already in, and I couldn't go back. Once you 1 foot in, you can't go out. It was like, all right, I can't have my mother keep paying for stuff, so I had to find a way to help pay a lawyer. She helped me pay it, but I was just out here in the streets, just feel like I was in a hole. And I was trying to get out the hole, and all I kept doing was just hustling. In the midst of hustling, I was getting, like you say, making money, but I still had to be a dad and take care of my son. I wound up meeting a young lady named April, and we wound up start kicking. She used to work at Shoe City. That was a store around my neighborhood, Alameda Shopping Center, Shoe City. And everybody around my neighborhood was trying to get this young lady. Everybody. And I was like, man, I'm going to just try my own. And I tried. And she was like, we wound up start dating. She had a child too. So my son was like 2 at the time. And her son was 1. And remember, I was molded into being my stepdad is my dad. So all I knew for him was be his dad. So we wound up growing up too. Him and Brandon was like, well, they is brothers to this day. But they grew up together. So now I'm taking care of 2 kids now. But they was my friends. They was like my 2 best friends coming up because they was always with me. I taught them everything my dad taught me. How to get potty trained, how to wash up, just everything. We did together.
That's fire. Yeah. That's fire. And I think that, is leading by example and passing that down to the next generation. And doing that. So, you were saying that, your purpose was, like dad mode. And then I guess as we unlock and we continue to move forward, we see, another level of purpose because, now community and now all of these things, like what problem did you feel like, okay, with your purpose that you were here to solve and then like going from there?
So I want problem solver for sure. I always felt like if I could do something for somebody, I'm gonna do my best to do it. No, I wouldn't let nothing get in the way of that. That was just how I was raised. My mother always told me, Brandon, if you want to do something, don't expect nothing in return. That hurted growing up because I was always a giving person, but it never was like I felt like it never was, reciprocated the same way.
Reciprocated the same.
It just wasn't. But at the same time, I got hurt a lot of times, you know. But at the same time, it was like, I'm going to just keep doing it. So I felt like, you know, I had to be there for everybody, including, at the time, Travis's mother too. That was my other son. That was April. So it was like, you know what? She might not have been working, but I'm going to hustle to get this money. I'm going to keep the rent paid, you know. I got cars, you drive cars, here's your allowance. You know, I start coming to myself because money start coming a little bit faster. So I felt as though, no, I'm going to do it. We're going to get through it together. And, you know, I was big on family because that's how I was raised.
For sure. And I think that, you know, that's big. I'm big on family as well. And I feel like, you know, when you extend yourself so much and you do. And sometimes it's like, it doesn't get reciprocated. It's not a great feeling. Because it's like, what you mean? Like, wait, hold up. You know, but I think as you continue to pour out, or at least just steward or whatever comes to your mind, and, you know, being intentional and being thoughtful at the same time about it, it's like, all right, cool. You know, with God, anything can work in your favor. So I feel like over that time, you were just probably stewarding and just doing what you felt was needed and necessary and weighing heavy on your heart. And now, you know, you're able to see the fruits of your labor and all of that stuff.
For sure.
So as you kind of like, you know, dive into it now, you know, you being a father, you know, like networking, working with kids and things like that, like how has this chapter been, you know, for you now? Like, you know, the things that you do, because you're active in the community, you're teaching people different things. You're teaching, you know, the youth life skills at an early age. You want them to, you know, grasp different things and creating different ventures for them. So, like, the why is what I would, you know, ask basically. Like,
so I have 12 kids total, right? We only talked about 2, but I always been that thoughtful person, right? So far, what made me really like transition into this is my why. I wind up, you know, as years grow, I started working. I started throwing parties, right? So I did the street stuff, and in the middle, I was doing the street stuff and the parties at the same time. I was really, really popular. I was good at throwing parties and good at hustling. So everybody knew me, right? And they knew I was a good father. So everybody liked the branding. So as time grew, right, hustling wasn't really working. Parties was going a little slow, right? I wound up having another child, and it's gonna be funny. I wound up having another child by Wendy, the one from high school.
wow.
I went back to her, and we wound up having a kid together. And in the midst of having a kid with her, it was like, all right, I'm back doing this family stuff again. And still doing a little bit of hustling, but it was like, all right, she had 2 kids at the time. Taylor was about 6 years old of that. That's my oldest daughter. She's 22 now, but she was like 6. And she had a newborn baby that was 3 months, right? So Samartine, he was 3 months years old. She was going to nursing school. So I started being the family. We started doing the family thing again and start, you know, blended family, stuff like that. All this is blended family based off of me. I didn't really have baby mama drama because everybody knew that Brandon's a good dude. We don't want no drama. As long as he take care of his kids, that's all that matters. So it was a lot of blended family. All that was going on. And then, you know, over the years was going on. Me and Wendy didn't work out. Always stayed friends, but we just didn't work out. And honestly, you know, we didn't work out because I went back to jail. When I went back to jail, it was like I felt like I was missing something. Because, you know, 19 to 25, I was in and out of jail. So going back, coming home, going back. So I felt like I was missing certain things. So as I'm missing certain things, it was a little bit, all the women, it was women everywhere. And I made a lot of wrong decisions just, you know, being hot. And I wound up meeting one of my other kids' moms. And then when I met her, it was like, all right, cool. We did the blended family thing again, right? In the midst of doing the blended family thing again, we had 2 more children, Bradley and Bailey. We had them. We kicked it for a little while, and it didn't work out. after it didn't work out, my wife to this day, I wound up meeting her. I didn't know she was gonna be my wife at the time. It was just, she was stable, I was stable, and I felt like I wanted something new. 2019, we wound up getting married. In the midst of getting married, like 3 months later, remember Travis?
Yeah.
He got killed. He got killed at that same shopping center I was telling you about, the way I started at. He got killed by gun violence 2016. So when he got killed, it was like, I was in a moment of transitioning, working in the school system, and no more hustling. That was my son, that was my boy, but it was like some of the things that I was seeing, I wasn't seeing. So it started out with maybe him smoking weed, and I probably like brushed it off a little bit. I didn't know he really was hustling and stuff like that to a sense. And it was like, all right, cool. I'm transitioning, I'm working in the school system. In the midst of that, and then boom, I got that call. I was on my way to Miami. And you don't get the call. You get you pay for the Wi-Fi. When you pay for the Wi-Fi, you wind up, checking Instagram, and it was like, one of your sons got shot down the shopping center. So I'm like, what? I'm looking. So Instagram message a couple of my kids' moms, like, hey, what's going on? Go down to the hospital, boom, boom. And then I got one back, and my wife was like, it was Travis. Travis got shot. He's on the way. We all on our way down to Johns Hopkins. And on the way to Johns Hopkins, it was like, Miami flight is only 2 hours, like 2 minutes. I'm checking. Ain't nobody, giving me too many updates. They just like, he in the back. And then by the time I landed, I'm in the back of the plane too. By the time I landed, I called my dad. I called him. I'm like, Dad, what's up? What's up with Trav? He good? What's going on? What's up? He was like, he ain't make it, Brand. So I said, what? And I remember clear as day. I'm like, what? He didn't make it. So I remind you, the planes be like 250 people on the plane. I'm in the back. I brushed it. People they was calling security. But two ladies that knew me that was on the plane was like, he just lost his son, let him off. And I wound up getting off and wound up broken down in the airport. And that's when I figured out what my purpose, what I was going to put my full 100% into, and it was the youth. Because I didn't want nobody to go through what I went through. I didn't have people wasn't shooting at me and stuff. I didn't have that type of issue. So it was like, how can I be the best person in this field? I know how to be a father. I know how to hustle. I know how to throw parties. But how can I help be the best person changing lives? So I dedicated my life into helping, people change their lives.
That's fire. And I think that's very, very important, because sometimes when we look at ourselves, we're like, whoa, what are some things that we didn't take advantage of, or some of the mistakes that we made. And then as we progress and we get older, we like, man, I wish I learned that sooner, or I wish I paid attention to that sooner, or was at least exposed to this, or had this particular opportunity. And that's what, I see you providing, with the youth and these things. So the things that you do for the youth, can you speak to that, like the things that you do?
Structure. A lot of kids come to me when parents sign up. It's either 3 or 4 things. Some parents sign their kids up for self-esteem. And with self-esteem, I make a kid who have anxiety, right? Social anxiety and stuff like that feel like $1 million. Because I instill things in them, to make them feel that way. I put them in situations around other youth and make them leaders. And then we got kids that just have behavior issues. So I have a boxing academy, right, where certified trainers come in and teach them how to take the anger out. Where they problematic kids in school, where they always fighting or always reacting, now they learn self-control. Think before you react and stuff like that. We also have cosmetology 101 for young ladies. So that's young ladies that they learn etiquette, they learn how to, take care, their parents and stuff like that who have low self-esteem. And some of the girls that, be in the fight and stuff with them, to be in drama, we instill things in them too. And also, I run a tight ship. So it's like, even at our groups that we have at Johnson Family Foundation, it's basically modeled like pretty much like school, right? A lot of kids, be in school doing whatever they want. I'm gonna just be honest with you. They talk back to the teachers. If you talking, they talking. So I built the structure early. Same thing that I did with my children when I was raising them. Well, push-ups. It was a push-up and wall squat thing. So that was one of my main things that still to this day that I do with children. If I'm talking to somebody else talking, hey, I need my push-ups. If you got in trouble in school, oh, don't worry about it. If I don't see you Thursday, I might pull up at your school. I need my push-ups or wall squats, stuff like that. So, I'm big on structure. The life skill part, we run a lot of different things. Hygiene is one. This generation, I don't remember, I guess I'm 41 now, but I don't remember my generation being this dirty. I'm going to say that. Because these kids don't like getting in the water. Their parents got to tell them, multiple times, get in the shower, get in the shower, get in the shower. I be hearing all the complaints. They was like, they just don't like taking showers. So stuff like that, we work on it with keeping their rooms clean and stuff like that, brushing their teeth, stuff like that. So certain ages from 6 to all the way up to 16, we work with stuff like that. I do a lot of home visits too. And one thing about what social media does, social media can even make you or break you, right? So I tell the kids, my teenagers, I'm gonna do a pop-up home visit. And if I come to your room and it ain't right, it's going on social media. So do you want me to expose that or you want to fix it? That wind up working because they be like, oh, and they never know when I'm gonna come. So, we just try to build structure and give them the right tools to be successful and, just to learn the aspects of life to make them a better person.
No, I think that's dope. That you do that way. I know, my younger self would have been like, yeah, go ahead, sign me up for that boxing, because I ain't gonna lie, the self-control, how to deal with the anger and all that stuff. Like, yeah, when you sit with a lot of anger and you don't have a outlet to release that, that's when things become like dangerous, and that's when people are like, yo, okay, what's wrong with such and such, and what's wrong with you, and stuff like that. So I think that because you've created multiple outlets for kids to be a part, youth to be a part, it allows them to actually, like try different things, and I love how you sat there and said something about like the boxing, like the hygiene, or just understanding to have structure, because I know with working with youth, structure is important, like your norms, your do's and your don'ts, you're still educating them, and you have your own module for doing that. It's like the I do, you do, we do model. We do this together, and as we continue to build, now, like your exit ticket or your assessment is like, okay, gathered all this information that we learned or whatever the session may be for the day. Now let's exercise that so that way it becomes practical. Now it becomes something that is like daily. And I think that's where that discipline lies in, because we could be motivated all day, and that's like the feeling. We could be motivated, like, yeah, this sounds great, but then it's like the discipline and the routines and sharpening that. I think that salute to you for combating that and putting that together and making sure that that's something that's consistent, because I think that's another thing that's missing with our youth sometimes, with its consistency
For sure. Being that person to show up for these youth is very important. And they be needing outlets, because what I'm learning in this field the last 10 years, a lot of parents, a lot of kids don't have them type of bonds with their parents. So some things they might tell me, they don't tell their parents. And even when kids sign up with their parents, I be like, listen, I'm not your mentor, I'm theirs. If you signing your kids up for this program, I need you to trust me, right? If you could trust me, we gonna get some results. And I tell them, as long as they're not trying to kill themselves, as long as nobody not pregnant, and as long as they're not in the way of law enforcement, I won't tell you what's going on. You already told me what we need to work on, and we're gonna work on it. You gonna see progress and change. And you know, kids be needing that again, that consistent person. So it's like, no matter what, I'm gonna talk to Mr. Johnson. I'm gonna talk to somebody on Mr. Johnson's team because we done built that bond with them and they trust us. And consistency, back to my dad days, he was very consistent for me. I always had somebody to talk to, right? He was that person that showed me everything. So I felt as though the same way I be for my children, I gotta be there for these youth, because they fighting battles that, you know, they don't even know how to fight. A lot of parents are young, and maybe didn't have the upbringing that I had, so they just trying to find that way. A lot of single family homes out there where it's just a mom. So it's like the only dad sometimes to the youth in the program is Mr. Johnson. That's the only father figure they might have, and they might trust as well too.
Yeah, and sometimes when they're around, like, you know, like I always think of like environment and atmosphere. Sometimes when, you know, they see like one positive person, but everything else around them is negative, it's hard for them to gravitate towards that positive person because of their environment or what they may go home to or things like that. I definitely think that, you know, with it all, it's like, you know, your spiritual got to be right. So like for me, God, family, support system, and understanding that, because like these battles, a lot of them are internal. They dealing with all this stuff inside, and like inside ain't right. So if inside ain't right, then outside can't be right. So it's just like we have to, you know, make sure that we're also, you know, paying attention to, you know, the conversations and what they're having, because a little conversation and a tone of voice can probably tell you everything. And then we have to really be mindful of that. And then, you know, having a conversation with them and, you know, not talking at them, and knowing that they have a sense of community and how community was for us. I'm pretty sure because community was so prevalent for us and so available for us, now that we don't, you know, we may not see it so prevalent for them, we become that community for them, or that outlet, that mentor, that person that can give them that extra push.
Right.
And I see that as well. And I think you touched on a lot of those issues earlier, because what I see sometimes is, you know, pandemic, school, they may, you know, like the environment, be around it, want to socialize more than, you know, put in work, or all of these other factors. They're dealing with a lot of things. And I think that it's systems in place. You know, salute to the parents, salute to the kids, salute to the communities, you know, everybody, because I feel like it's all important and it plays a vital role. And I think that when we all come together and like have this level of empathy, sympathy, and unity, that we all could come together and really tackle on the bigger issue. Because sometimes it's not, you know, the school per se, it may be just the environment, or a particular class, a particular hurdle, or them struggling with a certain thing or whatever. So I think that, you know, for us to put these things in place, to have systems in place, it'll allow us to be better, you know, to be stronger. So I think that, you know, the work that you're doing is needed and necessary, and, you know, how we're able to move forward. So purpose over fear, that title itself, man. When you spoke to me about the title, I think that's, for one, that's profound. Because when you're finding your purpose, it's really you knowing your why. Because everybody else asks you what question, like, what, or who, or when, or how, you know, but knowing your why and how that became prevalent. And then, of course, the fears, which is the insecurities, the doubts, and all of that stuff. So what inspired this book, this creation, this idea for you, and why do you feel like the time is, you know, in a sense now, man?
So all the purpose over fear, you know, is a book coming out, releases May 17th. That's my actual birthday. I'll be turning 42. I came up with this book because I felt like I went through a lot, right? I can't say I had a rough childhood, but all the adversity that I went through leading up to this day, I felt like I had to show people that I was a leader at all these times. So I wanted to give them life lessons off of real life experiences. So in this book, we have a lot of different lessons that I went through, and I had to show them how it aligned for me. I had to be a leader at the time, you know. And when you, like you say, when you got fear, a lot of things hold you back, right? I never was fearful when I was going through these things because I felt as though I had to do it. So when the fear was there, you know, I'm a man of God for sure. I always trust one thing, and I felt like God could get me through anything. And every battle that I went through, it was God first, for sure. But at the same time, you still had to be in front of everybody and show it that you was the leader at all times. So purpose over fear is basically driven off of that. So I had to show people I'm fearless. Nothing can stop me. And you know what I mean? You know how many times I had to say that to people so they could really. A lot of people are self-doubting themselves. So when I show that I'm fearless, it could be done.
That's fire. Yeah, I think that it's the bravado and what you tell yourself. You know, I tell people all the time, even with like motivation and discipline. Like motivation is the feeling, discipline is the routine. The days you don't feel like doing it, it still has to get done. The days that you may feel weary, it's like, dang, okay, it still got to get done. Or, yo, I'm in the gym and I'm trying to get these types of reps. I still got to get those reps. The light work is easy when the shadow work is done, but the shadow work continues because what you're doing in private will show up in public.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So as you're continuing to do that and, you know, it being inspiring and motivating for other people as well, I think that that's going to be something that's monumental for yourself. And, you know, I salute you in advance for what it's going to do, because I think it's going to impact a lot of lives and, you know, help a lot of people, you know, stay grounded, stay motivated, and, you know, be able to find a safe haven or at least some relatability where they're like, all right, cool, like this person went through it, this person went through it as well. All right, I can, you know, if I'm going through it, it's not the do-all, end-all. Like, there's still more to my story, and I still matter.
Yeah, never give up.
You can't. You can't. So, like, throughout it all, though, man, like, you got all of these, you know, ventures and things that you're doing for the youth, you know, Family Man, all of these things. Like, what is the self-care like for you, though, bro?
If I wasn't transparent, I wouldn't tell you this. But I want people to know. My self-care is shopping.
Okay.
Shopping and taking care of my children.
Gotcha.
So I get my peace and self-care doing stuff like that. So, like, it's like if I can go to the mall and buy my kids some stuff and myself for the fruits of labor that I've been grinding and stuff like that, that's my self-care, right? I don't really, I mean, I travel, stuff like that, but, you know, far as self-care is just basically shopping, retailing, and taking care of my family.
That's good.
You know, that's self-care to me. And I feel like my passion from doing those things, you know, that's where the fruits of labor just keep me going.
For sure, absolutely. I think self-care is so important because we have to find ways to pour into ourselves. We can't be burnt out everywhere, answering every single call. It's like, dang, okay, you neglect yourself, then it's like, dang, all right, it's going to show up.
Yep.
You know, so you got to be able to do that and things like that because, you know, being in the community, being active, putting on events, organizing, planning, and executing, you know, regardless, it's just like you'll find yourself ripping and running, and you're like, I got to slow down.
Yeah.
I got to.
Yeah, because, you know, one time, even with the ripping and running thing, back down the road doing this, all the family life stuff like that, I wind up, like you mentioned, the cup. And, you know, I'm always a giver. And then I found myself pouring. And I talked to my therapist. And she said, Brandon, how you going to pour from an empty cup? You spraying yourself thin. What are you doing for yourself to make yourself happy? And I was like, damn, what am I doing? Right? I feel like taking care of my kids is one thing that brings me joy. So that was for self-care to me, but it was like, what am I doing for myself? Sometimes you gotta sit back and reset, you know? Because every problem that comes through that phone, through that Instagram, it weighs on me. You know? The late night calls, the, hey, Miss Johnson, I want to kill myself, stuff like that. you got to figure that out. You got to step in that gap quick. So I felt like sometimes you got to pat yourself on the back.
Yes.
And say you doing a good job.
Yes.
So I give my lot of self a pats on the back. Of course, you get it from your audience and stuff like that. The parents appreciate me, stuff like that. But I'm not in the political world, so everything was done from the ground up. So, I get my own flowers sometimes by patting myself on the back.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to do that. I'm learning to do that more too, because it's like when you affirm yourself and you tell yourself that, I did a phenomenal job, or I'm dope, I'm a vibe, I'm amazing, like all those things, that's that reassurance that you have to give yourself. And it's like, if you don't give it to yourself, who else is going to give it for you?
Yeah.
Start, practicing and knowing, this is what it is for real. So I think that's definitely important, man. Definitely important.
Yeah. I wake up in the morning, just look in the mirror sometimes, even when I don't got hair, and it's like, I'm him. I'm really him. I'm really him. I'm him. I know I'm him. Because I everything that come my way, I figure it out.
Yeah, got to. And I think, also along the way, too, as you're doing that, like networking and building and making sure that the people around you are, knowing that, hey, you know what? This may be a little off, or, hey, yo, go take a day off. I got your back, or whatever you need help with, I think it's definitely important. Like, it's a sport that I don't really watch as much, but I'm getting familiar with because, of course, riding cars and stuff. I think NASCAR is slept on, but it gave me a different analogy when, we look at the cars all the time, rather be on the TV, and they just going all these laps, like the Daytona. I think it's like the Daytona 500 or something like that, like the Super Bowl or whatever. But you can pay attention to them running around the laps all the time, but I think the most important part is when they stop, because they realize who's in their pit crew. The person that's in there looking in their mirror, changing the tire, making sure that the oil is straight, all that. So who you have on your team is so vital and important, because who in your pit crew?
Yeah.
The pit crew is so important and vital to your success, because if you don't have that, then it's like you just going to be racing and not knowing when you were supposed to take a break or go to a rest stop, or you on the beltway, and it's like, this is designed for a rest stop. You may have to take it.
Yeah.
And be okay with that.
Yeah. Because a lot of people crash out like that. That's what's going on now. A lot of people crash out because they don't have a strong team or support system like your pit, like you say. And it's very important to have a strong team. For years, I went through that as well, too, off of, everything fell on me, right? If I didn't have systems in place, I wouldn't be here. This lifestyle I live, and, like I say, with my kids and everybody else, my kids AAU basketball, they play football, they do cheerleading, and then I got a whole Johnson Family Foundation youth too, to do this, and I still got to run systems and programs.
Yeah, you do.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That don't stop.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And like you say, you gotta keep grinding.
Yeah, you gotta grind hard, dream big, literally, bro.
That's it.
Literally, yeah. And that's what I'm learning as well. Like, even throughout the years, being able to reach, youth, or do events and stuff like that. Like, positioning myself to being like, all right, cool. When fatherhood gets here and all that stuff, I'm like, man, in this mentoring space, I feel like that already. Because it's like, dang, all right, you know what, little younger want you to pull up to the game or do this or do that, and it's like you want to be able to make sure that you're sane and that you're good, because when you're good, then you can know how your impact is going to be. But when when you're having an off day.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's always important to like recharge, reset, and refocus. And that's why I stress that a lot,
yeah.
with motivation too.
For sure.
Yeah, man.
For sure.
Yeah, man, for sure. So like, what is the motivation that you would like, I guess like something that you would have told your younger self? Now that you're sitting here now, it's like, yo, like, what is something that you would have told your younger self, and like motivation for like others too?
The best advice I can give, that if I would have told myself as a child, is listen to your parents. I feel like listening to your parents is a pivotal thing that a lot of people overlook. A lot of mistakes that I made in my life, if I would listen to my parents, I wouldn't have made them. So I feel like now the motivation is, for me, building bonds with my community, so they can listen to their parents and show them that, hey, this is the motivation right here, is going to get me where you need to go at. Whatever you want to do, whatever career you want to do, whatever sports you want to do, whatever obstacle you got to face, if you listen to somebody or your parents, you gonna get there. You know, so my motivation every day is just changing them kids' lives.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's embracing, knowing that you got to embrace your past, enjoy the moments of now to have a proud future.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that sometimes, you know, all it takes is to start. You know, I tell myself that, you know, like remind myself, you know, that Noah took his time building that ark. And when he built that ark and it rained, he was prepared, you know, and these different things. It's like we have to continue to prepare ourselves. So what we do today will dictate our tomorrow or put us forward towards the tomorrow. So, you know, making sure that every day you make it count. You
Definitely.
You make every single day count.
Yeah.
You got to.
I'm 24 hours, really, all 24 of them too.
Yeah. You got to make it count and just be, you know, show up as yourself, be unapologetically you. And, you know, just know that, you know, you are somebody in this world. You know what I'm saying? And knowing that, you know, you matter. That you are important and you are the most valuable person in
For sure.
world. You know what I mean? So, man, this has been a great conversation, bro. I think that it's, you know, like I said, a lot of gems. I definitely see a lot of potential. I see a lot of things that you're doing. I salute you for the work that you're doing. It's not easy from one brother to another. It's not easy organizing, planning, executing, having programs. But I will always say that when you know your why, no other question matters.
Yeah, nothing.
no other question matters when you know your why, for sure. So just know that you have purpose, man. God got you. He's going to get you through all the things He's already gotten you through. He's going to multiply all the things that you're doing. Your program is going to go up even more than that. I see it, man. It's a citywide thing. It'll probably be a statewide thing soon. You know what I'm saying? Or a local thing now and a global thing later. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
local, never global.
Yeah, I see that.
Never local. Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
For sure, man. So, like I said, how can people follow you, support all those things that you got coming up, man?
Everybody, you know, tag Mr. Johnson JFF, and also tag Johnson Family Foundation. That's on Instagram. They my Instagram. That's where I mainly promote over there. That's pretty much where everybody can find me at. You know, that's a lot. I get more calls from Instagram versus my own phone number.
Wow.
You know, a lot of DMs. Like that's my main line of communication. So if anybody ever need me for anything, you know, my phone is 24 hours. I'm not a mentor that has business hours. You know, I'm not that person.
Got you.
So, you know, I just show up anytime.
That's what's up. And like I said, man, May 17th, y'all make sure, purpose over fear. Y'all make sure, like I sat there and said, it's gonna be his birthday too. So make sure that y'all go ahead and you know, get the book. Make sure that y'all tap in. I'm gonna make sure I get my copy because
For sure,
I love
for
to
sure.
read. That's
Yeah.
my thing. I love to read. I love to stay motivated, and I'm waiting to, you know, like I said, hear more. You know what I'm saying? Can't give everything away right now. But,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
not
saying?
everything.
More. Yeah, not everything, but definitely for sure, man.
Yeah. Because they say, in the slavery days, they used to say the high stuff from black people, they put it in a book. So I took that, even writing this book off of, I got to get these lessons and let the world know what's in this book. You know, purpose over fear, May 17th. We ain't hiding nothing. It's going to be in black and white.
For sure. So, like I said, man, I appreciate you. You know, continue to do the work that you're doing from one brother to another brother, man. I see you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you,
Yeah,
man.
appreciate you.
You already know, man.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. And y'all already know, the harder you grind, the bigger you dream. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. I said the harder you grind, the bigger you dream. You can't grind hard if you don't dream big. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. And we out.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That was good.
That was
Soundstripe.